Alright, let's get in and sculpt the face. So we're going to use remesh. We're going to turn, well, make sure you've selected the top subtool, turn X off, and then click remesh. We just want to do a quick sculpt. I don't want to spend a lot of time on all the details and forms. I want to get a quick sculpt so I can get a quick sense of the attractiveness and the variables and how all of them are playing out. Okay, there we go. You can just press N, go all the way to the end to the skin, go into solo. We probably have enough information to move forward, but let's store morph target. You may want to do some of the sculpting or all of this on a layer, and that way we can track what we're doing better. So clay brush or clay buildup, up to you. I'm just going to fill in some things. So that's going to be the masseter muscle I'm filling in. I'm going to fill in this infraorbital. I'm going to fill in some area there for the cheek, I'm sorry, the jaw. I'm trying to keep these bony landmarks like that zygomatic bone. Temporal line. I'm going to overlap zygomatic. Switch over to trim dynamic, pull that a little bit further back. Okay, pressing Alt. Okay, and we got the side of the face fairly well established. Let me take care of bone there. Definitely got to fix up that chin. Now I'm pulling out to the mentalis. Wherever that mentalis is, that's what's accurate. Okay, and that's with trim dynamic and pressing Alt. You can also use inflate. I'm going to use inflate with back face masking. To really help me get that chin. Okay, Damien standard brush, get the line of the lips. Marionette line. You get that nostrils pretty clear about right back there. That'll really help establish the rest. Let's turn solo mode off and just make sure I know what I'm doing. Okay. Yeah, this area was not clearly defined. Our vagueness kind of left that to just be much too large. So what I need to do is define exactly where my end points are. So this nostril is accurate. The lip is accurate. The nasolabial fold is going to be accurate, but everything in between there now needs to get trimmed. What better brush to do that with than Trim Dynamic? And that's really a result of the carelessness from before. Which one are we working with? We're working with version 1. Okay. Okay. Side plane of the nose. Front plane, the zygomatic. Don't forget the infraorbital triangle. I've got the clay brush right now. I'm just adding a little bit of fat in there. And then smoothing it out. Alright, and the nose. Let's take a little more control over that. So outer record mode, divide. And can we go back into record? Layers always worry me. Okay, I'm gonna bake it. I'm not gonna do this stuff in a layer. I have iterations for that. But that nose is gonna need some attention. Might have also made too much of that chin. That's where we need that morph target. Yeah, we made too much of that chin. I need to pull that up. There. That's a little better. Still keep it straight and pulling out, but not so far down. I basically grew it too much in my zeal. Alright, so we're on our way. Already's looking good, but yeah, like I was saying, that nose is not right. But then again, how do you adjust a nose? Okay, a couple of things to keep in mind: your tip defining point, your facet, your alar cartilage, that's your nostril wing. Here's your alar cartilage, lateral cartilage, and your nasal bone. So I need those points. So I'll do that with a drawing. And then alar, come down the middle. Alright, And now we go in and start to flatten things. So see, you might have looked at that and just thought how horrible that nose looked. But the key thing is just to not react. At least that's my opinion. Don't react. Just wait and see if your process solves it. Adding a little bit for the nasal bone. Underside of the glabella. Okay. I'm going to pull in and separate, just give that alar cartilage a little bit of a shape. I'm doing that with move. Okay, really strong nose now. Okay, and let's get to work on that eye area. Lacrimal bone, frontal process, the glabella, overriding the overhang, and then the fat underneath the eye moving in towards the glabella. All the strokes I need to make that happen. Just made them. Side plane, front plane, inside plane. Okay, move that up a little bit. I don't want to separate that brow. I don't want the brow to become too large. I'm even starting to mumble now. This is the point where it's a lot less system and definitely some of how you work that system, some of the art. I'm going to increase her cheeks slightly. Draw that in. Okay, but everything done and said, you've seen now what would be a more attractive base. So this is absolutely a more attractive base for you to start to sculpt and start to figure out what she's going to look like. This is something that you can make much more attractive. And all of that's coming. I mean, I think I've been on this 15 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. All of that's going to come from the adjustments that you did to that base mesh, to that anatomy, I'm sorry, to the skull itself, using those rules, the premises, the proportions, and then also the contouring. Got to be careful. That just went a little bit more masculine. See the difference? Might be hard to, but basically I flattened it too much. So, all right, what can we do with the next one? How can we resculpt that And if we do resculpt it, does it within minutes retain some level of attractiveness or start to go downhill? Hey there, so we've taken a look at converting this face, which is version 1, to an actual skinned model and looked at the proportions. A couple of things we noted, that nose really had a lot of width to it. So there's some variations that we can do and play with in terms of the skeleton. But let's take a look at the other one that we have created that was supposed to be a little bit more mixed ancestry. And one of the things you're going to notice right off the bat, or at least I noticed soon as I shut the recording off, is that if you look at it from a 3/4 view, that brow is massive and she's got almost no cheekbone to support it. So if I was to go in and actually turn this into a mesh or a model, so let's just do that, do a quick sculpt of it, it's not going to look that good. There's going to be some definite problems. So I'm going to show you this problem first. It'd be wise to watch the problem and then we'll go in and fix it. It would be highly ideal if I would select the topmost subtool and then remesh all of it. That way I get everything. So let's just let that do its thing. Once it's done, we're going to start to be able to see a little more clearly the problem that we're facing. And one of the things I'd like to encourage in you right now is not to get judgmental about this and start to say, well, it doesn't look good, and then you just go into this deep well of artistic pain. We are explorers. That's all we are right now. I mean, we're in a class, we're in a workshop. We just want to know what this is gonna. We just want to know something we didn't know before we got here. We're not going to be judgmental about our artistic abilities, skills, or anything of that nature. I'm going to have to undo all these guys because backface masking needs to be on. Mine's in the interface. Whoops. Press Alt. Backface masking's on so I can actually be a little bit more aggressive. Okay. Just going to adjust. We left that muzzle of the mouth a little bit on the large side, and let's avoid the mistake we made before where we put too much chin on. So I'm going to put a little bit of skin thickness there because that was essentially bone, and I'm going to build right up to the mentalis and build the mentalis there. Okay, we didn't put in enough information in the anatomy to know how that chin was going to be shaped. So, you know, you have some leeway. And we're not reconstructing somebody's face that, you know, they basically need to have as accurate as possible so they can identify a murder victim or a murderer or something of that nature. So we have the benefit of playing. So play. Okay. From a distance, not looking too bad. Nice pointy chin. We can augment some of this a little bit. Let's go and set my embed to 9 and stroke 0.05. Okay, I'm going to start to go directionally. Masseter, just make that a little rounder. I'm going to start to create a little bit of that muzzle, the depressor anguli. Okay. Temporalis. The temporal line fixing into the frontal eminence and the mentalis. That's probably a mistake in our sculpt, the frontalis. This muscle right here. Probably shouldn't deviate from the skull that much. Okay. So we got a few things working, and let's tackle what's really the big problem here, which is that from this 3/4 view, that is a massive forehead. Huge. Okay, I'm going to address this real quick, but this is exactly what you want to be experiencing. You want to be looking at these and experiencing the fact that, oh man, my anatomy, my skull was not right. And so now we're going to go in and see what we can do to make it right. Doing the nose is not one of those, but in order to set up the whole dilemma, I just wanted to be a little bit clearer about what the components were going to be and all the elements involved. Okay, so those guys got a little sharper, that nose perhaps too much, as always. Alright, so now in order to fix this, I can either look at this from below and evaluate the brow. You've got the glabella. It's not a huge glabella in comparison to the supraorbital margin and the overhang. It's actually relatively minor. But you could conceivably create more of a slope for that forehead. You could. And we can try it. Because again, we're experimenting, and I'm giving you kind of those areas where you have room to play. So there we go. We've sloped it more, which is okay for a female. But the glabella is one of the key things in a male. So to have a prominent glabella, which is actually what's happening because of we forced it all back, can really cause you some problems. And my next solution, we have perspective on, is going to be to kind of pull the frontocephenoidal process, pull all of that along with the zygomatic bone forward. Frontocephenoidal, zygomatic bone, temporal line. Coming down into the maxilla, all that stuff. So I'm going to just be pulling that forward. The placement of this frontocephenoidal process is a constant battle for us. It's very hard to know when, where, and kind of how to place that. But let's take a look at some scan data and see what that does with the frontocephenoidal process. Okay, so we've brought some scan data in, and notice how far forward that is. And this is scan data. This goes back a little bit further, but still compare that with what we've got. We pushed ours a little further back, and the way it was before, let's undo all of that. See how far back that is now? Much, much, much too far. So we want to be pushing the overhang back slightly, the glabella back a little bit. We're going to use trim dynamic to do that here in a moment, and I'll show you the planes that I'm considering. But essentially what we really needed to do was just pull that zygomatic bone and the frontocephenoidal process, the zygomatic. We needed to pull those guys forward. And now in a 3/4 view, we're going to be in better shape, much better shape. Now there's definitely some problems, like this looks like squinted eyes there. You know, so you got to be careful of that stuff and not let it get you. But right now what I want to do is really block in that orbit of the eye. So I'm going to flatten this glabella a little bit, the area right underneath it, the down plane, superciliary arch. I'm going to kind of try to flatten its connection with the frontal eminence. and then I'm going to slope things a bit more after that frontal eminence. Okay, I'm going to pick my temporal line, which I'll say is right there, and start to flatten around that. Flatten that zygomatic. Flatten the side of that frontocephaloidal process, and then that overhang. And then I want to make sure that the overhang and basically I want to make sure that there is this down plane that is separate from the glabella. Okay, really important to kind of keep those distinct. So, yeah, there we go. Have that almost go inside and then gently merge with it. Look at it from below, make sure I'm not getting too extreme. That's not too extreme. That's kind of nice. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. Okay, I'm pressing Alt and I'm really kind of building up that zygomatic a little bit more than you may want to. And I'm also adjusting this plane here. It's going to be hard for me to explain it, but this is going to be one of the hardest things for you to sculpt in somebody. It's just really hard to get that plane right. Once you do, though. Okay. So we're looking okay. I'm going to use move. I'm going to just pull that temporal, that overhang in a little bit. Basically, I want to make sure that the zygomatic is one arch, overhang is another frontal eminence. Doesn't have to be an extreme difference, but it's best to have a difference. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Alright, looking at that from a 3/4 view, what problem do you see? Take a second, try to figure out what problem you're seeing there. Is there anything that you think needs to change? And then take a look at some models, hopefully trying to get that particular angle. Now, a 3/4 is kind of hard to get in people. Kind of hard. So let's take a look. For some reason right now I'm thinking about a picture of Naomi Campbell that I can't quite, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find, although that's kind of nice. And what I'm going to try to identify is the infraorbital triangle. What you're wanting to identify is this space right here, that infraorbital triangle. What is her infraorbital triangle doing? Let's go back to ZBrush. You notice in our infraorbital triangle, it's descending down and then in. And this is more indicative of a male actor. Let me actually be really clear. I'm going to actually search for a second and see if I can find the exact actor. Okay, one of the guys I was thinking is Eric Roberts. And try when you get time watching one of his movies, look for how his infraorbital triangle is shaped. And try to decide if it's curving in, like I drew it, or if it curves out. And then also, you take a look at Clint Eastwood and try to see how this infraorbital triangle behaves. Is it full and curving out, or is it kind of concave? Of course, it is pulling out, but there's definitely points in time when, or I'd just say overall, especially if you're talking about from the zygomatic bone, it is kind of concave. It is pulling in. So these are all important considerations for us. And if we were to say go further with these, we could say trim dynamic. I'm going to push in. and really accentuate the way that curves and come in. About like that. Alright. So there you go. But I don't know about you, that is distinctly male right now. So let's undo that a little bit and let's see if we can start to make this more male. So we're 15 minutes in on this one particular face, and again, this is really an exploration. But let's start to fill in, going from the zygomatic bone and really this plane here all the way into the corner of the mouth. That's the trajectory I'm using. I'm going to use the nasal labial fold as a bottom, so all of this upper lip, that'll be a no-fly zone. And then the zygomatic bone all the way to the frontal the frontal process of the maxilla, that's no fly as well. So we really only have this quadrant to look at. Okay, I can build up a little bit. And then around. Okay. I might flatten this upper lip a little. Or not. But now we're starting to get a little better. It's still a little on the masculine side. So let's soften a little bit of this. And I'm going to switch my brush over to clay. I'm also going to exaggerate those lips a little bit, give them some more room. Okay, set that up already as a little bit more feminine. And then now the clay brush, or better yet, the inflate brush. Okay, of course, this stuff all makes a difference in that as well. Smooth out that jaw will quite suddenly change the scope of things. Get rid of some of the anatomical references that we put in. We put them in, you know, for a reason, but the more anatomical references you leave in, the more masculine it'll look. Okay, blending that a little bit, then smoothing it. Okay. A lot of what I did was clay, build up, and then the inflate brush. That last little part would have made it a little harder for you to see how form was built. But I'll go over that area again now with clay buildup. And let's give it a strong value here. And blur it into the cheek. Or into the master, I should say. Okay. Okay, looking not too shabby. Get some eye suggestions in there. And I'm going to use move and just blow those cheeks out a little bit further. And no matter how you swing it, she's definitely looking more feminine now. Definitely looking more feminine. And of course, this is just a base. There is, of course, work to be done from here. Figuring out these lips, getting everything proportional, or really kind of tied in. Nostrils, get the planes to that upper lip, eyes, eyelids, eyebrows, you know, all that stuff. But we're close. We got something that we can kind of work with now, and we got over the big problem that we were kind of facing, which is that zygomatic bone was just quite badly positioned. Adjust the nose a little bit. I'm also going to pull that forehead back a touch. And then you can look at that in conjunction with some of the other faces. Okay, and the infraorbital. And this one we went over a little bit. Put a little extra volume in there. Okay, there we go. We'll leave it at that.